The Abyss, a realm of darkness born from Manus, more beast than man, and lord of the shadows where dark wraiths reside. One knight strikes forth into these roiling shadows, intent on banishing the Abyss from the land and protecting Anor Londo, the legendary Knight of Gwyn, Artorias the Abyss Walker. Alongside his trusty wolf companion Sif, this hero has sworn righteous vengeance against the Abyss itself, but will the two of them be able to stand against such darkness alone?
With the advent of Universes Beyond, Magic the Gathering has released cards that reflect a host of iconic, popular, and interesting franchises. In this series, we'll take a look at fan-favorite characters from different mediums and muse on what their cards may look like. In the spirit of Universes Beyond, join me today in asking the question, what if... Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between. My name's Kirin, and welcome back to Magic the Gathering What If, where we look at cards from different franchises and say, what if that was a Magic card? What if we could play with it? It's been a hot minute since we've done an episode, so thank you so much for your patience. I just got back from holiday, not but a few weeks ago, and we wanted to make sure we jumped back and wrapped this season of Dark Souls up. So today, you're going to be watching episode 6, which will be featuring the second last of our commanders, and then the following episode will be the last episode for season 1 of What If. As a reminder, what do we do on this show? We take a popular franchise, in this case Dark Souls, we create a bunch of cards kind of centered around the commander format just to make it simple. So we have a legendary creature, famous character, and some support cards that go alongside with it. So that isn't to say that those cards couldn't be used in Eternal formats, but we are focusing on one of Magic the Gathering's most popular formats, which is, of course, EDH. That's the series, but what we want to do beyond that is really up in the air. So after we're done this season, I'll talk about a little bit more about what we might be doing with the What If series as a whole. So let me know down in the comments if you've enjoyed this, but without further ado, let's not make you wait any longer. Today we're looking at our first Dark Souls card of the day, and that is...
Look closer. The Abyss is reaching out unabashed. I shall stop further encroachment or die trying.
Alright, this one is very special. We have Knight Artorias, a legendary creature, legendary character in the Dark Souls franchise, dearly beloved by fans, and our very first blue and green commander. It turns out that the Dark Souls universe is quite Mardu, black, white, and red. At least in my mind. So Knight Artorias is our blue, green, and white Bant-colored commander. This is before he was corrupted, so this character actually ends up going kind of to the dark a little bit. He was a fighter against the Abyss, which is kind of the darkness, and kind of lost his fight with that eventually, and in Dark Souls you end up fighting him after he's been corrupted and releasing him from his curse. But today we're looking at Knight Artorias before he was corrupted in his Bant colors. So he's a bit of a explorer character going around and defeating the Abyss, combating the Abyss. And the first thing you might notice is how much fucking text is on this card. Now listen. Watch the first episode, see the design philosophy. This card actually isn't as complex as it looks, so let's break it down. Knight Artorias is a 4-mana, white-blue, 2 colorless for a 5/3 legendary creature, human knight. He's a 5/3 with first strike, so he can tussle with the best of them. Hexproof from black, because he's kind of the enemy of the Abyss. And also Boss Soul Artorias, so he does get that little bit of a buff slash negative thing where, you know, he can't be destroyed or exiled outside of the combat step, but if he is destroyed or exiled in the combat step, then they're going to get a boss soul from it. That lets us kind of be a little more aggressively costed with his 4 mana and all of his abilities. So Artorias enters the battlefield with an Abyss Walker counter on him if he was cast. So if he's in the command zone or in your hand and you cast him, he will enter with an Abyss Walker counter. We'll get back to that in a moment. Whenever a non-token creature dealt damage by Knight Artorias this turn dies, exile that card with an Abyss Walker counter on it instead. And then, his main ability is blue, green, and remove an Abyss Walker counter from a card you've exiled or a permanent you control and choose one. Exile Knight Artorias, then return him to the battlefield under his owner's control, so you get to blink him, flicker him. Or reveal the top card of your library, and if it's a land, put it onto the battlefield. A very Simic ability. So that's kind of to invoke the idea that Knight Artorias is going around to different lands and fighting off the Abyss. The flicker obviously is just his sort of speed and combat ability to be able to get out of tight situations. Like I said, it's actually really not that complicated. He has a couple keywords. Abyss Walker counters get put on a couple things, and then he can do one or two things with those counters. So not that complicated, just requires a little bit of text to get the most flavor out of him. But Knight Artorias would go nowhere without his trustworthy companion, and for fans of Dark Souls, you know who that is.
The young wolf looked up at his master, his friend. They would be inseparable forever.
Alright, so leaning into the green, we've got Sif, Wolf Companion, a legendary wolf creature. 1 green, 1 colorless, 2 mana for a 3/2 wolf, which has Companion. So that for those that don't know, Companion is a unique ability that was very heavily eroded by Wizards of the Coast for its overpoweredness in Eternal formats. But Companion basically is, the card sits outside of the game, and you can pay 3 colorless mana at any point during your turn as a sorcery to put it into your hand, and then you can cast it as normal. It used to be you could just cast it from that zone, and there was no 3 mana cost, but obviously that was a bit too powerful, so hence now we have that 3 mana cost. So he's a companion, and the way you get a companion is that they have to fulfill a specific requirement. So some of them will make it so you have to have only even numbered cards in your deck for mana cost, and that sort of thing. So Sif's companion ability is very simple. Knight Artorias just has to be your commander, and you can have Sif as your companion. You could also run him in the 99 in any other deck if you'd like, or as a commander himself, I guess, if you'd really like. Sif has haste, and then now I'm going to get this is where the flames in the comments begin, the cinders of the comment section. I'm sure my editor is already typing something or editing something into this to punish me in my hubris, but Sif has haste, banding, provoke, and soul 1. So haste to, if you get out Artorias, or you have Artorias out already, we want Sif to come out and be able to come out swinging. Banding and provoke were 2 abilities I added in simply because their interaction with Artorias himself, which I thought was kind of fun and cool. So banding is an ability that hopefully will be on screen here, and I don't have to explain it too much, because to be quite honest, I don't like banding at all, and if you watch the progression series, you know that. But it is an interesting ability, and it does kind of work in a fun way in this regard. So banding means that, for example, if Sif were to attack with Knight Artorias, you can form a band. And so basically those creatures get put into a group, and then when the opponent blocks the band, you basically get to assign how the damage is dealt instead of your opponent, and how your opponent's damage is dealt to you. So it kind of does this really interesting thing where it basically turns multiple attacking creatures into 1 attacking creature. And then provoke basically means when you attack, you choose a creature of your opponent's, it untaps, and it has to block. So what this does is it allows Sif and Knight Artorias to get into combat together, provoke an enemy's creature, and force it into a block that otherwise wouldn't be desirable. And then, of course, Knight Artorias' ability allows you to then exile that creature once it's killed, and put an Abyss Walker counter on it. Is it overly complicated? Of course. But it is flavorful and fun, and pairs well. So that is what Sif does. He also has Soul 1, so it is a bit of a aggressively costed card, and so when your opponent does kill him in the combat step, they will get a soul token. And then lastly, because we want Sif to be able to come back and fight with Artorias, even though he's not in the command zone, you can remove an Abyss Walker counter from a card you've exiled or a permanent you control, and put Sif, Wolf Companion, into your hand from exile or the graveyard. So that's another reason he has haste. So if he dies, you can bring him back, get him out with haste, get back into the fight. So that's Artorias and Sif. I think we'll start to see a little bit more sanity in the cards to come, or maybe not. But I promise there's no more banding. God help us. Let's go check out the first support card.
The soul of a man who fell on this spot. He was a dear friend.
Okay, so, you know what? I mentioned this card earlier in the Gwyn episode. Gwyn actually had 4 knights. He had Ornstein, Hawkeye Go, who was the captain of the Dragon Slayers. He had Knight Artorias, who is obviously the commander we're looking at today, but he also had Lord's Blade Kirin. Ironically, not the same as my name, Kirin, but is very close. So this is kind of me, I guess, Lord's Blade Kirin. Lord's Blade Kirin is a Celestia-colored green and white for a 3/3 human knight, legendary. She has First Strike, Soul 2, so if your opponent kills her in the combat step, they'll get 2 souls, and Wither, so she deals her damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. This is to represent the fact that Kirin's blades are actually deal a lot of toxic damage in the game, and that's represented in my mind through Wither. I was actually considering giving her like an infect type ability with poison counters, but I thought that mechanic specifically fit more of a different archetype for Dark Souls, and so I thought we'll do Wither for Kirin instead. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature with a -1/-1 counter on it. So this is a bit of a flexible ability, kind of lends itself almost to its own strategy, where if you can put -1 counters on creatures, you'll be able to basically proliferate them, sort of. Of course, this creature doesn't proliferate, because otherwise that would be a little bit bonkers in some other ways. So she's kind of a pseudo -1/-1 counter proliferator. And then the fun begins, because whenever a creature you don't control with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, Kirin deals damage to target creature an opponent controls equal to her power, and you scry 1. This ability triggers only once each turn. The reason for that is because what happens is when she deals when she deals damage to target creature equal to her power, it actually is in the form of Wither. So the creature, if it has 3 or less toughness, is just going to die immediately. And so therefore we needed to put the once per turn trigger on it. Otherwise she could basically board wipe your opponent's creatures with 3 toughness or less, which would be a little too powerful. But in this case, you can still kill a lot of your opponent's creatures with low toughness and get some scries. So that's Lord's Blade Kirin, and she's pretty cool. I like her. Let me know in the comment section, how would you build her as your commander with her own 99 cards?
Its wearer, like Artorias himself, can traverse the abyss.
All right, we are in our second card for today as far as support cards go, and we have the Covenant of Artorias, which is an equipment, a ring that you actually get in Dark Souls. And in Dark Souls, you get this Covenant of Artorias specifically for one purpose and one purpose alone, and that is to go into the abyss and fight Manus, who's the kind of this I believe it's Manus, or is it the 4 Kings? I don't remember. There's one boss that lives in the darkness, and you basically need to have this or you'll die, like, immediately. So this is kind of Artorias' way of leading you through the darkness, through the abyss. So it's a 3 mana equipment with equip 1. Equipped creature gains Swamp Walk, protection from black, and at the beginning of your end step, put an Abyss Walker counter on a land you don't control. So the Swamp Walk and protection from black is to kind of show off the fact you're able to move through the abyss. And then at the end of your turn, you're going to be able to put Abyss Walker counters on lands you don't control, and that's going to lead into the next ability, which says lands with Abyss Walker counters are swamps in addition to their other types. So it's not going to make it so that you can, like, turn your opponent's lands into swamps completely and utterly, like blocking them out of mana and colors. It is going to turn it into a swamp, though, which will let your Swamp Walk attack through. Which then, for the final ability, says, when equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, remove an Abyss Walker counter from a land they control and put it on Covenant of Artorias. So it basically allows you to get a free unblockable attack in. You remove the Abyss Walker counter from a land they control, put it onto the equipment, which is really good because if you are playing with Knight Artorias and you have Sif as your wolf companion, you're able to remove Abyss Walker counters from permanents you control to do their abilities. So kind of combos with that as well. So let us know in the comment section, do you think that protection from black is a bit overkill? Do you think this is a finely costed equipment for what it does? It is probably on the cheaper side, but it is very niche. So yeah, let us know what you think. And we're going to dive into the next card.
Sir Artorias hunted the Dark Wraiths, and his sword strikes harder against Dark Servants.
Okay, so The next card is Great Sword of Artorias, the next in the line of legendary artifact equipment. So for 4 mana, colorless, you get to play this legendary equipment card. Equip 3 or equipped a legendary creature for 1, same as all the other ones we've looked at. An equipped creature gains +3/+0, same as the other great sword we had previously, Gwyn's great sword, and has destroy black creatures dealt damage by equipped creature. So to be honest, this deck actually has a lot of pieces that are really hating on black. So if you're up against a black deck, which a lot of the other commanders are, you're going to have a bit of an advantage. If a creature dealt damage by equipped creature would die or be exiled this turn, exile the top card of its controller's library with an Abyss Walker counter on it. That's not instead. So it just is saying basically if you kill a creature or they would be exiled and you dealt damage to them, Artorias does exile creatures that he deals damage to, so it would still trigger off that. You get to take the top card of their library, exile it with an Abyss Walker counter on it. Creatures you control gain protection from the exiled card's colors until the start of your next turn. So that could be quite powerful, because, you know, you flip a card, let's say it's a red card, all of a sudden all your creatures gain protection from red until the end of your next turn. Even though the sword doesn't do much in the actual game itself, we want to create some flavorful and fun little things that push the meta of this commander, and that in this case is the Abyss Walker counters and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, this is the Great Sword of Artorias, a powerful equipment for Knight Artorias himself.
The dark wraiths dared not approach the fabled knight, his will a light in the shadows.
Okay, so now we get another mono white card in the enchantment Repel the Abyss. So this isn't from the game directly, this is more of a flavor thing, but Repel the Abyss is a 2 white, 2 colorless enchantment. When Repel the Abyss enters the battlefield, put an Abyss Walker counter on a creature you control, which you could then spend later, but you might not want to, because at the beginning of your end step, each opponent creates a 4/4 black horror creature named Dark Wraith. Horror creatures can't attack you as long as you control a creature with an Abyss Walker counter on it. So basically what this allows you to do is pump your opponents full of these huge 4/4 black horrors, and then as long as you have a creature with an Abyss Walker counter on it, you'll be able to stave off that. So it's a big risk-reward card where, you know, you're gonna hopefully get your opponents fighting each other with these 4/4s, but God help you if the Abyss Walker creature goes away. In that regard, you know, maybe it's not as powerful as it should be. Let me know in the comments of what you think, but I thought it was a very thematic card. You know, the Abyss is creeping in, and Artorias is the only one that can fend it off. So that's Repel the Abyss. Let's take a look at the final card for supporting Artorias the Knight.
Apart, dangerous adversaries. Together, warriors without peer.
Okay, the last support card today is a blue card. A big shout out to the people that wanted to see more blue cards in this series. It just didn't work out that way. I apologize. We only really got Knight Artorias in this. But you know, we'll probably have lots of blue cards moving into other What If seasons in the future. Did I maybe just spoil the fact the next episode isn't a blue card either. But we have today Bladefang Tactics, which is a 1 colorless, 1 green, 1 blue, and kind of represents the teamwork between Sif and Artorias himself. So it's an instant for 3 mana. Spell cannot be countered because, you know, it's kind of doing the blue thing where you're trying to, you know... Actually, I guess blue and green both do it, but it's kind of the sneaky little combat trick that you're going to be able to use against other blue decks. And what this does is you put 1 of each type of counter divided between 2 target attacking creatures from among Death Touch, First Strike, and Trample. So in layman terms, basically you get a Death Touch counter, a First Strike counter, and a Trample counter, and you have to divide those 3 counters between 2 attacking creatures. Until the end of turn, those creatures, they gain, remove a counter from this creature and choose 1. Gain Ward 4 until end of turn, exile this creature and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, or counter target activated abilities. That's a lot of utility. Basically, you get 3 counters to divide among them. They are going to keep those counters after this card is done. The counters don't go away. And if they have other counters, maybe +1/+1 counters, they'll be able to remove those counters to either gain Ward, be able to blink themselves. They'll lose their all their counters if they do that, but it could save them. Or they'll be able to counter an activated ability that your opponent might have in store. So Bladefang Tactics is a lot of versatility for 3 mana, can't be countered, so, you know, it's a great way to kind of ribbit to those, ribbit? Is it a frog? Ribbit. Rib those blue players. You know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, that's Bladefang Tactics, Artorias' last support card for today, and that is the package for this episode. All right, we are at the end of episode 6 of What If? Knight Artorias and his trusted companion Sif the Wolf. Let us know what you thought of the card designs down below, as you always do. We love to hear them, and to be honest, if we ever do use these cards in the future, we will definitely take some of the feedback you guys have all given into consideration, and maybe even make some edits to the cards themselves. So even though these are the cards you saw in this episode, some of the designs might change as they evolve. I will be fully transparent. You know, I only put a few hours, a couple hours per episode into the support cards themselves, and then maybe, you know, a little bit longer for the commander themselves. So this isn't like WotC's R&D department where they probably play test and test all these cards over and over again. This is just a couple hours, a few hours of my own time coming up with cool ideas for these franchises. So have some mercy on me, I suppose. And we very much hope that you've enjoyed it. So we here at Filthy Casuals like to traverse the multiverse and ask the question, what if these cards, these Dark Souls cards, existed in Magic the Gathering? Today we're doing Dark Souls, but next season, who knows what franchise could be in store? Could be anything. Could be Marvel. It could be Star Wars. It could be Stranger Things. No, they've already done Stranger Things. It could be Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know. You guys, I don't know. Maybe an international audience doesn't know Chuck E. Cheese's, but it could be anything. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But my name's Kirin. Thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you guys in the next episode. Bye for now.